Guys, welcome back to Mr. and Mrs. B UK. And for those of you who are viewing or coming onto this channel for the first time, I'd like to specially welcome you to this channel. Normally, I'm here with my wife, but she's not here today because this video is not about the both of us. This video is more about myself. Yes, it's about me. But yeah, so ladies, don't have so much information for you guys today, but you can stay if you want to. Fellas, this is more for you guys, so stay tuned. Okay, today's topic is spending too much time. I need space. Yes, this one's a heavy hitter. So without further ado, I'm essentially just gonna go straight into today's video. And basically, we're just gonna, you'll rather, I say we have a conversation, but really, I'm just gonna basically say to you guys how I have coped with wanting my space and how I essentially communicate that with my wife. And I'll take you on a journey of how I've been able to do this even prior to marriage and how that dynamic might have changed now being married and living full time with a woman. I guess the biggest question really from a male perspective is, how do I cope when I need space from my wife, but doing that in such a way that doesn't hurt her feelings? And I think that that's a very important question to ask, simply because the way men and women are wired are very different. And what a man can say to a man, he can also say to a woman, but it can be taken in a different context just because we are not the same people, essentially. We're equal, but we're not the same. Our brains are wired different, our emotions are wired different. Even, like internally, the way we are wired is different. Women have wombs, we don't. And so it's essentially like the way in which we think about things, the way in which we process things, the way in which we analyze things is very different. And so I think for me, growing up being the firstborn, I sort of I'd say like I enjoyed my free time or my space prior to like my siblings being born, even though that was kind of short-lived. I've always been used to having my space. Like 8, 9, I had my own room, and from then I'd always have my own room. So very early on in life, like I stopped sharing rooms with like my siblings. And so I was always just used to being able to go to my room, have my space if I need it. I think when you get into a relationship, the dynamics begins to sort of change, especially as you get older. So not necessarily when you have relationships in secondary school, but when you sort of get to the stage where, you're in a serious relationship, it's leading towards marriage, or it's on that path towards marriage. And so I think that you have to start taking into consideration like how the person that you're with feels about some of the things that you may want, or some of the things that you feel you may need, or some of the things that you may feel that you're used to. I had a very great upbringing. The early formative stages of my life, I enjoyed a lot, and I was really grateful to my parents for the comfortable life that they gave me. Things sort of turned in a slightly different way than expected. As a result of that, like my life changed. I would say like I'm a better person now, but the experiences I went through weren't always great. Like I had some negative experiences. And so as a result of those negative experiences, I essentially used wanting or needing my space as a way to sort of, release, stress, vent my anger or frustration. I really liked my own company. I liked my own space. I liked the fact that I was able to sort of, just go away and, not talk to anyone, just, focus and lock into whatever it was that I wanted to do. And it wasn't always from a negative perspective. Even when things were going well, I was just always sort of that child who is very sociable, a very outgoing guy. But I always like to sort of, take a step back and, be away from the crowd and just sort of like, have my own space. I think now being married, my schedule is very busy. So I don't think that in my lifetime, as of yet, I've been as busy as I am now. And it's the irony of it is that I'm recording this video during, this COVID-19 lockdown. So you would assume or expect that like with the world slowing down, that like it would slow things down. And to a degree, it had slowed down things for me. But it was also an opportunity for me to start things that I really wanted to get started. I found myself in the place where I needed to really start balancing my time. And sometimes that meant, that I'd need space from my wife. The most important thing really is that what underpins, a successful or fruitful marriage, from what I've both seen and heard, is trust and communication. And I once heard a saying that says that communication is the key, but trust is the lock. Communication is the key, but trust is the lock. If you're open and if you communicate to your spouse on things that you need to do, especially as guys, like I know that for me as a guy, I internalize a lot. So I wasn't always the type to open up about things. If things are going on in my life, I'm not the type to be calling people like, oh, I'm really down and this and that is happening. That's just never really been me. And whilst I don't believe, and I'm not an advocate for you sharing your business with other people, I do believe that for the sake of your mental health, the fact that it's important for you to speak up and communicate what's going on in your head. I got to a place where I realized that I needed to start doing those things, especially, now being married to a woman who is a communicator, does not internalize the way I internalize, and does sort of expect, that from me in terms of being able to say like what is going on in my head. Because at the end of the day, men or women, we can't read each other's minds. So the fact that you're internalizing something and the fact that, you may not be happy about something and your facial expressions might show it or not, doesn't really, doesn't really mean that the person who is with you is privy to know that information. And so, yeah, back to my schedule. So like I said, I'm in the middle of doing so much. I'm building right now, as is my wife, she's building as well. But I guess for me, one of the things that I felt was important to just sort of communicate to her was that, like in this period of lockdown and just in general, I would need to spend some time, doing work. And most days when I wake up, after I pray, I get straight into work, or sometimes I just go straight into work because I've got meetings from very early on in the morning, sometimes through to the end of the day. So it is important to communicate. I think that like another thing to say that I think is important is, even with the fact that you may need space, it might not be like the example I've given in terms of work. Even if you do need space, I think that it's very important that in that time that you're taking space, still go and check on your spouse as well. So, take time to stop what you're doing, take a breather, take a walk around the area, but not just do those things. Go and intentionally check on your spouse, like go check, find out if they need anything quick, that is, because when you go to women, sometimes say, do you need anything? They can start giving you a long list of things like, well, actually, I need advice on this, and then you don't want to, you regret the fact that you asked. So anything within reason. But I guess my point is, be intentional, stop what you're doing, like just pause what you're doing if you're able to, and just go and check on them, like, how are you? What's going on? What are you up to? Like, I know these things sound basic and it's like, well, you're not saying anything new, but you'd be surprised how many people are so engrossed in their work and in the name of, I already told you that I want space, don't eventually end up doing those things. And then you get to the point where your relationship now becomes, three-way instead of two-way. So instead of it just being you and your spouse, it's now your spouse feeling like it's, you, them, and your work. They may equally be busy like you. They may have even requested space as well. But understand that just because someone has requested space doesn't mean that, like, you shouldn't attempt to check on them. For some people, when they say they want space, it's like, yo, don't check on me. Like, I've said I want space, so I don't expect you to check. Don't come and like talk to me about something random, like we're getting a dog, like soon. Like, I don't expect that if I'm busy in the middle of a meeting or if I'm busy doing something, my wife comes and is asking me about advice for what color dish should I get for the dog and whatnot. And the thing is, like, I don't mind that she asks me that. It's just that I expect for her to respect the time that I've requested. So unless it's something important or unless it's something that she feels is necessary to share, or something that, that she needs to get advice on, and the key word there is need, not want. So sometimes you already know what you need to do. You just want to hear someone else say something. That's not a need. And I think that's something for me to sort of, lay emphasis to the women on, is that, like, as men, we're always going to be here to, be here for what you want to do. And we really respect the fact that, you come and seek, validation, clarity, confirmation, and approval from us on things that, that pertains to what you're doing. But at the same time, there are some things that you guys are aware of that you don't necessarily need to ask. And it's good. Like, that's not to say that you shouldn't, but it's also being mindful that sometimes your man or the guy that you're with may say, look, like, this is how I operate. You know, if it's not important or it can wait till later, try not to disturb it. And I think that there should be some mutual respect between the both of you. If you're requesting space, or, you know, if you need space in order to get things done, or you just want space to think or whatnot, I think you need to be intentional about creating time to, I wouldn't say necessarily make up for things, because it's not really a tick for tack, oh, because you asked for space, you now have to do this. Like, that's not really how it should work in relationships. But I think really the word I'm looking for is compromisation and consideration as well. So one of the things that myself and my wife do is that during this lockdown period, because I'm busy throughout the day, you know, with my work and the things that I need to build, one of the things that we do is that every day, or we try to every day, go on a walk, you know, around the area. And we've got such a nice area where, you know, it's like a massive sort of compound of different apartments. So we have a lot of grass and a lot of greenery near our area, but then also we've got some other space as well where we can walk to. And so we really just sort of try to carve out that time in the evening when, you know, she knows that, okay, I don't have as much work to do, or I don't have any work to do, and vice versa with her as well. She doesn't have much work to do, and we take that time, leave everything at home. I try to actually leave my phone and just take like my wallet or keys, you know, that I need, so that I'm not actually tempted to go on my phone, because I know that that time that I'm, you know, going on a walk with her is vital, that I actually connect with her. It's vital that, you know, we actually discuss, you know, with each other. It's vital that we actually communicate and connect, because I genuinely believe that, you know, the times that you really actually get to grow with your partner and be intimate, and I'm not talking from a physical perspective now, but I'm just talking more mentally and emotionally, is the times where you cut out distraction and you're intentional about being present in the moment. And I think that that's something that is very vital to any successful marriage. If you want to see a marriage grow, intentionality is definitely an integral component. For a walk is our thing, but then sometimes, you know, we'll be having lunch, and we use our lunchtime to say, you know, watch a series on Netflix together. And I know that isn't necessarily us communicating, but we're together, so we feel present in the moment, and so we feel like we've spent some time with each other. Just a point on that, I would like to say though, that don't let, you know, Netflix and, you know, watching films, or, you know, doing things that don't involve you guys actually connecting with each other on a deep level take the place of connecting on a deep level, if that makes sense. Because sometimes, you know, people assume that, oh, well, we've watched a film together, so we've spent time. And that might be for some couples, you know, okay. But for some other couples, or for some people rather in relationships, they want you to actually be present. They don't want a phone, they don't want social media, they don't want Netflix. They literally just want you, them and you in the same space, just engaging. And I think that that's something that is very important. Again, this is dependent on the type of relationship, so this is not a blueprint for everyone. For some people, it's different. So I guess the main thing really, and the most important thing, is understanding and seeing what works out for the both of you guys. Another thing that I will touch on is mannerisms and tonality. I think that those two things are very critical in marriage, and those two things, in my opinion, can either break or make your communication in marriage. The mannerism in which you say things, so now I'm speaking to you guys, my body language, the way I move, the way in which I talk, says a lot. But the tonality, the way in which I am saying things now to you guys, is very, very crucial and vital. By default, men have that, because we are strong in general, and that's not to say that we're stronger, but because we are strong-minded in general, sometimes the way in which we interact with other men, you know, can be very, you know, brash, or very, you know, brute, shall I say. We can talk in a certain way, like, what do you mean? Like, men can do that to each other, and men won't feel intimidated by, you know, that, because that's just, you know, that generically, this is a generic statement, generically, or generally, so to speak, that's something that is common. But with women, that doesn't tend to be the case. Women are, in general, not to say it's all, but in general, women are a lot more softer spoken. And so the way in which you communicate to them, the mannerisms, the tone is very crucial. Like, I can't be saying to my wife, but I told you I need space. Like, that can scare the life out of her. And I think the other day I was actually demonstrating to her, you know, two ways in which to talk to people. And I think one was soft. And when I did the impression of the harsh tone, like I saw her startled. Mannerisms and tonality is important. It's, you know, if a guy is saying to a girl, you know, oh babes, like, you know, or hey darling, you know, I really do need space. Like, I think it's vital for me to have space from you guys, from you at this present moment in time. Like, I think, you know, I just need this space for this amount of time to really focus on what I want to do. I think even if a woman doesn't want to give you space, they won't at least fault you for the mannerisms and the tonality in which you made your request. I think it becomes an issue and it becomes a problem, you know, when there hasn't been where thought hasn't been given to the way in which you articulate the request. And I think that if, as a man, you know, you don't understand how to effectively communicate to your woman on things that, you know, you want to do or things that you think will benefit you, then I think that even if they do say yes, as most good women will, inside them, you know, they won't be happy. And I don't think that they won't be happy because you're asking. It's more not being happy because of the way that you've asked or the way that you have approached the situation. And so I think that that's vital for men to understand that the mannerism and tone in which you speak to, you know, your woman about the space that you need is important. I think, you know, for ladies as well, one of the things that I would say is that when men say that they need space, I know that not everyone, but some women see that as, oh, he doesn't want to be with, like, around me, or like, you know, I'll be honest. I know my wife quite well, and I know that I'm married to someone who, like, she can see something, and as a result of seeing, you know, that thing, she can amplify it. So an example of that would be, like, I think yesterday, I think she was watching a video about, like, a dog owner who said something like, you can train the dog, but then, you know, when the dog actually comes, you know, it's a full-time thing, you know, it's the first thing you think about. And for her, it's like, she's been doing so much research on it to the point where it was like, you know, she did not want that to be the case because obviously she's, you know, gonna be busy full-time and stuff. And so, like, she sort of amplified that situation and came to me and was like, she's concerned. And I said, why are you concerned about, you know, what someone else said? Yes, someone else's experience doesn't determine your experience. You know, and so I think that for guys who, you know, are with women or with girls who, you know that they may have the potential to amplify things, you have a lot more responsibility to conduct yourself in a manner and present a tone that really explains and really sort of, you know, assures them that, like, me requesting time and space is not me wanting to be away from you, or me being separated from you, or me not, you know, wanting to be, or even me finding you annoying. Because some women, when you say I want space, they hear, oh, I'm annoying. And it's like, no, I never said you were annoying. I didn't imply you're annoying. I literally just mean I want space. And like I said, someone like myself who's grown up in an environment where I've always been able to have my space, I think for me, I've never been in a situation where I've ever said I wanted space and someone's taken it as anything other than I just want space. So it would be weird if I say to, like, my wife I want space and she takes that as, oh, like, you don't want to be around me, you don't want to be near me, or without asking me what I meant. And that's the thing as well, is that I would implore ladies that when your man or when your guy says something, it's important to actually ask what they mean. I know that might sound silly if a man says, oh, I want space, and you say, what do you mean? They may take it as like, what do you mean? What do I mean? Like, I literally said I want space. But I think, again, this is what I mean when I say mannerism and tonality. The way in which you ask really determines the answer you'll get. So could you explain, like, when you say you want space, and this is me giving an example of what I think, you know, ladies should say, you know, when you say you want space, like, do you legit just mean, like, you don't want me to come and disturb us as often, or you want me to leave you for the day, or, like, these things might sound like, why do you need to explain it? Well, if you don't explain it, then you can't really complain if, you know, your wife comes into the room and says she needs to ask you something important. If you haven't set the parameters for what is classified as important and what isn't, then you leave them to assume. And the reality is that, you know, the reason why, you know, disappointment is a prominent thing in some marriages is because of expectations, or rather, should I say, expectations that haven't been communicated. And I think that it's really, really important to understand that as humans, we are very impressionable. And because we're impressionable, it also means that, like, we are moved sometimes by not just what we see, but what we hear as well. And so bearing those two things in mind, it's important that you explain that this is what I mean when I say I want or I need space. And I think you also have to understand that I want space and I need space are two different things. If a guy says I need space, that's not a want. A need means that, like, this is what I need from you in order to be able to X, Y, Z. So it's important to respect that need. If a guy says he wants space, now it doesn't mean that, like, because he says he wants it, it's not important. It's just that the emphasis on need suggests that whatever it is they need space for is important. And sometimes it doesn't mean that they don't want to discuss with you. It doesn't mean that they don't want to talk to you. It just means right there and then what they need, right there and then what's best for them is space. And I think that that's important for us to understand, is that people often, push this agenda, or rather, should I say, people often, push this ideology of the fact that, okay, in marriage, two are one. So what it means is that, I can't be myself any longer. And that's not the case. I genuinely believe that you are still yourself and your partner is still themselves. Just because I'm married to my wife doesn't mean that the things that makes my wife happy necessarily make me happy. I will compromise and enjoy it and make sure, I take pleasure in the things that make her happy, but they're not the things that necessarily would come as first nature to me. They're more things that will grow into second nature, and that's the importance of marriage. Really, is that you're actually becoming one with someone else and understanding that what was not second nature to you prior to you being married is something that develops into that over time. I think the final thing really is it's important to understand what your spouse's or your partner's love language is. For my wife, it's quality time. So I guess for me, that means that requesting space too often doesn't actually suit our marriage. And the reason I say that is simply because she is wired to desire quality time. That is how God has made her. And so as a result, it's important for me prior to marriage, not now in marriage. It was important for me prior to marriage to learn and understand that. Why? Because that's going to be an indication of what to expect in marriage. If you don't ask these questions like, what do you want? What do you like? What do you enjoy? If you don't ask these questions prior to marriage, then, at the end of the day, you're really kind of setting yourself up, because how can you, as a guy, you thrive on wanting your space, but your wife thrives on quality time? That's a recipe for disaster. Do you know what I mean? And that's not to say that you're wrong for desiring that. But again, it goes back to the fundamental thing that I said in the beginning underpins, a fruitful and successful marriage, which is communication. Your wife should be able to trust that if my man or if my husband or if my guy says that he needs or wants space, that he legit just means that he wants space for a specific period of time, or he wants space for something that is legitimately important. For someone like me, I go through a lot mentally and I think a lot logically. So my wife thinks outwardly, I think inwardly. So I process inside and then I speak. My wife speaks and processes. And so it's important for me to understand that because we're two different people and because we think differently, I need to go the extra mile in really understanding, what it is that she wants. And she also has to go the extra mile of understanding what it is that I am trying to articulate. And those two things are very important. And so I think for me, like, bearing in mind that my wife's, love language or strongest love language is quality time. I think for me, knowing that from the get-go when I met her, it was important for me to begin to adopt a practice of spending time with her. And that doesn't mean that I never had the intention to from the onset. What that just simply means is that if someone's love language at the top of it is quality time, it means that it's their biggest priority. And so you need to go the extra mile with someone who quality time might not be up there for you like them. And you need to go the extra mile in being able to accommodate that. You need to go the extra mile, to sort of really facilitate that quality time that they desire. And you don't do it out of, how do I explain it? You don't do it out of like, it's not a chore. That's what I'm trying to say, essentially. You don't do it out of like being bored or like out of pain or struggle. Like, you genuinely make effort to do it out of love. Because at the end of the day, like, love isn't conditional. You know, Christ said, love your enemies. And the reason why he said love your enemies is because he knows that love is a choice, one. And secondly, he knows that it's not common and it's not natural for anyone to love their enemies. Likewise, it's not natural and it's not common to necessarily change your love language from yours to your spouse's, in the context of if your spouse's love language is quality time and yours is physical touch, or yours is acts of service, you're not going to change to quality time overnight. It doesn't work like that because you are wired in a certain way. And so it's important to remember that. I think my final comment really would be to both guys and girls that communication is key, like I've said a few times in this video, but it's really just important to understand that, you know, as human beings, we're all different. Some are introverts, some are extroverts, and essentially, you know, some are, I think there's the term for it, omnivert now, which is people who are sort of like a mixture of introvert and extrovert. And I think I sort of sit in, you know, the middle where I'm, you know, sometimes I can be very outgoing. Sometimes I just want to be, you know, inside. And when I say inside, I literally mean sometimes I just want, you know, to have my own space. I just want to, you know, focus on doing something. And so I think that it's important for you to really take time to understudy yourself, take time to understudy the person that you're with, and take time to really, you know, build something fruitful together. And I trust that, you know, as you guys, you know, progress in your lives and progress in your relationships, that I hope that some of these things that you've been able to hear from me today are going to prove useful. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the video. Gosh, I can't believe that I did this whole video on my own without any assistance. Legit set up everything. And I'm quite proud of myself. So yeah, with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, and you already know what to do. We'll be back with another video. See ya.